Good morning, friends and enemies. Today we're going through my top 36 running back rankings for the upcoming season of fantasy football. It's early. It's never too early. Maybe this is a little bit too early, but free agency has pretty much happened. So we have a good lay of the land. And what I'm going to do is quickly run through my 36 top running backs and give you a very quick hitter, all right? Like a one-liner, maybe 2 sentences. Imagine you ask ChatGPT to summarize the outlook for these players in 2025, but you're getting Nick's POV, all right? The Nick GPT. We've been doing a lot of dynasty content. So if you play dynasty fantasy football or you're interested in getting in a league, we're also setting those up. Make sure you go subscribe to that channel. We'll link it below. This is the first of the regular fantasy football, redraft fantasy football videos of the offseason, all right? So let us jump in with the first running back, of course, Mr. Saquon Barkley. Likely would have had the single greatest fantasy season up there with like an LT season if Jalen Hurts didn't take, 18 rushing touchdowns, right? The 2,000 yards, 13 touchdowns, whatever the case may be. Could have had like 25 touchdowns. No reason to think he won't repeat a similar performance to what he had last year. This year, their offense started to operate through Saquon Barkley. Now Kenneth Gainwell is also gone, so maybe he's got a little bit more of a receiving upside going into next year. My RB2 is Mr. Bijan Robinstein out there in Atlanta, okay? He had his sophomore breakout season, 15 touchdowns, almost 1,900 yards from scrimmage. He is entering his prime in an ascending offense now with Michael Penix, second year in the Raheem Morris offense. He ain't getting any worse from here, all right? Let's go to RB3. That is Jahmyr Gibbs down there in Detroit. Super duper high floor player, attached to an elite offense with an elite offensive line, an elite playmaker who will give up some touches to David Montgomery when he is healthy, but obviously we see the upside when David Montgomery does miss time. RB4, Mr. Derrick Henry in Baltimore. A lot of concerns last summer, his age, his role, all of this and that, and the other thing, the offensive line, none of it mattered. 16 rushing touchdowns, tied the league lead for rushing touchdowns. Behind Lamar Jackson, it is impossible for a running back to fail. There's no reason to believe that he won't go into the year as the Vegas odds-on favorite to lead the NFL in rushing touchdowns. RB5, Jonathan Taylor, and a lot of this ranking hangs on what we saw at the end of last season when Indy was healthy, when the offensive line was healthy, and they finally got JT back from the high ankle sprain, and they were able to run the offense the way that they wanted to run. The last 5 games of the season, he averaged 29.4 touches, 149 total yards from scrimmage, and 1.4 touchdowns per game. That is the JT that I think we're going to get a lot of in this upcoming season. RB6, and this is the only rookie I'm really going to put on this list. I'll cover a couple other ones and where I think they could slot in, but we don't really know the draft capital of those dudes. However, we know that Ashton Jeanty, he ain't falling out of the top 15, probably not the top 12, probably not the top 10 picks in this year's draft, okay? You look at a guy like Jeanty who is unbelievably well-rounded, explosive, contact balance, vision, patience, footwork, every buzzword you could think of, the man puts that on film. We've done in-depth film breakdowns over on the Dynasty channel. So again, subscribe over there if you're interested in more of the rookie talk. But Jeanty, top 10 draft capital, the skill set that he has, the floor for his touch count and the ceiling of his touch count really it is not limited by anything. So I think he's going to be an immediate elite fantasy producer right off the rip. Moving to RB7, we've got Devon Achane down in Miami. Raheem Mostert is no longer there. We have now seen in back-to-back seasons, Devon Achane can get it done through the ground 2 years ago and then through the air last year. So no matter what their offense is doing, no matter how the defense is playing against them, they have game-planned Devon Achane into being, the playmaker in this offense. They do need to improve their run blocking and really shore up that interior offensive line if they want to have success on the ground, but Achane has pretty much been game plan proof up to this point. My RB8 is Chase Brown in Cincinnati. Now, Zach Moss is just, he's the WOT. He's going to be out of there pretty soon. They did replace him with Samaje Perine, however. And Samaje might eat up some third down role, a little bit of chunk action there, but Chase Brown was as good as any fantasy running back over the second half of last year. It's an incredible role. It's an incredible offense, which will be a lot of the same this year. Joe B, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Mike Gesicki, Chase Brown. Everything we saw over the second half, I expect to see a lot of replication in this year. Number 9, we've got Bucky Irving, Tampa Bay Buccaneer. All right. When we look at this offense, they have all 5 starting linemen returning. They have Chris Godwin returning. Should be a really high-powered offense. Unreal rookie season. And hopefully we see Bucky Irving, grow more and more into the pass-catching role as he continues to eat up anything Rachaad White was getting back there. The RB10 is Josh Jacobs, and I think you can argue him to be higher. I think he's just a really good running back in a really good offense, and it's just one that we're not going to overthink like a lot of people did last year. RB11, Christian McCaffrey. This is one where obviously he's going to move drastically up and down the rankings this summer. Basically, what I want to see is him pretty much at practice all summer with no setbacks to his Achilles. If that happens, they have Jordan Mason traded out to Minnesota. If it's just C-Mac back there with Isaac Guerrero, you can see C-Mac being drafted as a top 5 running back again. If he starts dealing with lower body injuries, if he starts having that Achilles act up again, he's going to move down the rankings significantly, and I'll probably just have him on the complete stay-away list. RB12, James Cook, the last of the RB1s in this little rotation here. Touchdown numbers, 18 of them last year. Obviously going to dip next year, but his floor is cemented as a top 15 back. Like when you're part of the Bills offense and you're this big of a part of the Bills offense, you're going to have a really high floor. They did resign Ty Johnson, and I'd imagine Ray Davis gets a little bit more work, but James Cook is explosive. James Cook is extremely involved. James Cook can play on all 3 downs, and clearly he can score touchdowns. So I'm not too worried about James Cook when you're starting to talk yourself into why you shouldn't take him. Alvin Kamara, RB13, same narrative, same Kamara. I don't really know what's going on with the Saints offense. Probably doesn't matter. You can mark him down for 75 catches. RB14, Kyren Williams. Nothing about last year suggested there's going to be the narratives all offseason, like Blake Corum's going to get more work, but nothing suggested that Sean McVay is ready to start moving touches from Kyren over to Blake Corum. With Matt Stafford returning, a healthy offensive line finally, Devontae Adams coming into the offense, I think this offense just has a super high floor, and so will Kyren Williams. RB15, we've got Joe Mixon. He slowed down tremendously over the second half of 2024. The Texans dumped Laramie Tunsil, Kenyon Green. They badly need offensive line help. But it's hard to shake just how good Mixon looked in the beginning of 2024. But he does feel a little bit riskier than being accounted for. At the end of the day, though, it's a pretty good offense, a good running back. And I don't want to, take that away from him. So he's going to be a little bit further down than the guys that I feel like are maybe a little bit younger, a little bit more explosive in a situation that's a little bit less risque. RB16, we've got Chuba Hubbard. All right. Given the contract extension last year, Jonathan Brooks expected to miss all of 2025 again with the re-ACL tear. Carolina's offensive line got crazy upgrades last offseason, and it really came through. Bryce Young took a major step forward. Chuba, I think, is another, high floor value running back 1. Just because he's ranked running back 16 does not mean I don't look at him as, an RB1. Not in the same vein as like a James Cook or an Alvin Kamara. I think he proved last year he can be that. Next running back, we've got Breece Hall of the New York Jets. Just a weird 2024. Like we saw glimpses of Breece Hall followed by glimpses of Zamir White. And maybe we get a rejuvenated offense with a new head coach and quarterback in New York. Justin Fields could open up lanes, but I'm skeptical. Hall did not have a single game last year with more than 18 carries, while both rookies, Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis, were good enough to earn work. They were stealing some valuable goal line work. Something was clearly off. Like Hall just wasn't the same elusive and explosive player in 2024 that we've come to know. But I will keep the door open if things all seemingly break right this offseason. Next running back, we got Najee Harris. He moves over to the Los Angeles Chargers on a 1-year, I think like $8-9 million deal. You could not have asked for a better landing spot for Najee Harris. Really just throw away anything you think about when it comes to Najee Harris, me specifically doing this as a talent. If we learned any lesson last year, it's like these veteran running backs, no matter what you think of their talent or if they're old or if they're washed, going to a new team doesn't matter as long as the team setup is great. Saquon, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon. The situation you're going to matters far more than your age or someone's perceived talent of you. Najee feels like an extremely high floor player right now in a really opportunistic situation and offense. And this is an offense that uses their running backs at a very high rate. J.K. Dobbins is a free agent, not resigning. Gus Edwards is gone as well. So ton of opportunity here for Najee. He's an underrated pass catcher too. I could see him catching 50, 60 balls in this offense. Next up, we've got James Conner as the RB19. Got an extension last year. The Cardinals seem confident in riding Conner until the wheels fall off. People, like the prospect of Trey Benson, but same thing with what I said for Blake Corum. There was no evidence whatsoever that it seemed like they were moving to Trey Benson over James Conner. He showed very, very little as a rookie. But as always, James Conner is just set up to miss multiple games. Next running back, we've got Aaron Jones. Re-signed with Minnesota, $10 million a year contract, so that's significant. They boosted their offensive line with Will Fries. They added Ryan Kelly, who is definitely at the end of his career, but Will Fries is a big upgrade. You look at the entire offensive line, and it's a really, really good unit altogether. As long as J.J. McCarthy isn't a complete bust, this offense should thrive, and Jones will be the 1A to Jordan Mason as the 1B. Maybe they draft a rookie. And I do think they need a complimentary back for Aaron Jones, but he's in a really, really objectively good situation right now. Talk about objectively good situations. Cannot look past the next running back, Mr. David Montgomery. I don't think Montgomery's ever going to be completely phased out of this Detroit offense because, again, it just matches Dan Campbell's smash mouth belief of what an offense should be, and his skill set is perfect. Put him on the goal line, let him get carries up the middle, but it's just really hard not to believe that after last year, Gibbs does not deserve, the Lion, no pun intended, the Lions' share of the backfield. Next up, we've got Jaylen Warren out in Pittsburgh. Now, Najee is gone. The backfield is Warren's until maybe draft day. We'll see what they do in that backfield. I believe they added Kenneth Gainwell. He came over from the Eagles, but nobody else yet. I don't really see a reason why Jaylen Warren can't have an Austin Eckler light type of ascension. He's one of those dudes that's incredibly efficient on a per-touch basis. Per carry, per touch, per reception, all that kind of stuff. Has a ton of wiggle, has a ton of explosion, and we just haven't really seen him get the workload yet. So we'll see, what happens throughout the draft. If they end up taking a back in day 1 or day 2, then there will be obviously cause for concerns. But until then, I like where Warren's at. Moving on down, we got Kenneth Walker. We are now entering year 4 of Kenneth Walker, and we can't really shake the what-if narrative. Every fantasy drafter is enamored by his talent, but the dude cannot stay healthy, and this offense kind of feels like it's becoming a little bit of a dust cloud, right? You got no more Geno, you've got no more DK, no more Lockett. They obviously bring in Sam Darnold, Clint Kubiak, Cooper Kupp, whatever, but I don't know that I love the swap tit for tat. And not to mention, Zach Charbonnet had 8 rushing touchdowns in 2024. That was not an insignificant number there. So Kenneth Walker, sure, everybody loves the talent, and people act like they know ball when they're like, yeah, Kenneth Walker's the guy this year. It's just we're 4 years in, and it just ain't happening. So I think at some point we got to take a little bit of a reality check there. Next up, we got Tyrone Tracy Jr. Man's had a breakout rookie season despite being a day 3 pick. 1,120 yards from scrimmage, 6 touchdowns, despite a slow start, despite starting the year as the RB3 behind Devin Singletary, behind Eric Gray. Tracy has a 3-down skill set and really only a couple years of experience at the running back position. So I expect him to keep improving. The concern for him from a player standpoint is just ball protection. He fumbles the ball a lot, got benched for it last year. So if that keeps happening, I do think that probably tends to relate to the fact that he's so new to the running back position. He was a 4-year wide receiver at college and probably does not learn how to run with the ball up the middle, especially. Obviously, there are a lot of systemic issues with the Giants as well, quarterback, offensive line, all that kind of stuff. Next up, we've got Tony Pollard. Up to this point, I feel like you have a lot of really good fantasy running back options. Tony Pollard has now rushed for over 1,000 yards in 3 straight seasons, despite being part of the Titans last year, who have the number 1 overall pick in the draft this year. Tajay was a fucking nothing burger last year, so the entire backfield still ran through Tony Pollard. Tajay had a minor fantasy breakout towards the end of the year, but I don't think that's really sticky. I do think there's systemic risk being in the Titans organization right now, just having a bad offense. But you do look at offensive line improvements. They bring in Dan Moore Jr. to play tackle. They bring in Kevin Zeitler, so it will be an improved offensive line. I think at worst, he's the 1A going forward. Next up, we've got Brian Robinson Jr. He has missed multiple games in all 3 NFL seasons. He's yet to rush for 800 yards in any of them. He shows glimpses, games at a time, where you're like, yeah, he could be a really, really solid top 15 fantasy running back. Just can't string it together for a full season. If he could, he'd be a great value pick in an offense that's probably going to be in the top 5 in scoring again. Next up, we've got Ramondre out there in New England. Hard not to question his fantasy upside at this point, but he was given a contract extension last year. Other scheme, obviously. Should be the 1A. In a backfield, in an ascending offense with Drake May. He obviously has 3-down skill set, though it's hard to project that he'll be using all 3 downs for his skill set next year with Antonio Gibson still there. After Stevenson, we've got DeAndre Swift. Up and down season for Swift last year. Did culminate in 1,300 total yards, but there was over 20 running backs that had over 1,300 yards. There's kind of opposite forces at play here. They drastically improved their interior offensive line, signing Joe Thuney, bringing in Drew Dahlman, signing Jonah Jackson, and that's great for the running back room. However, almost every mock draft you look at has the Bears taking a running back within the first 2 to 3 rounds. Usually it's Ashton Jeanty at 10. If it's not him, it's Travion or Junkins or omarion Hampton in the second round. If that happens, Swift is all but dead in Chicago. Next up, we've got Tank Bigsby. Tank straight out earned the early down role over Travis Etienne last year, but his lack of receiving involvement in this offense kind of limits any fantasy upside. We also saw the new head coach, Liam Cohen, who came over from Tampa Bay, utilize a running back by committee really effectively between Bucky and Rachaad White. So there's no real reason to believe that there's going to be any sort of like lopsided touch count in 2025. Next up, we've got Isaiah Pacheco out in Kansas City. Absolutely brutal campaign for Pacheco in 2024. Injured his leg very, very early on, had a 9-week absence because of it. Can never really find his footing when he came back. He was basically outperformed by Kareem Hunt, who did actually just re-sign with the Chiefs. Kind of just leaves a sour taste in your mouth if you drafted him last year. He's also a very late round draft pick, so they don't really have any sort of like loyalty or incentive to push him to see if he can get back to that 2023 play. After Pacheco, we've got Rachaad White. By year's end last year, Rachaad White was purely a pass-catching back in that backfield. You have Bucky's breakout. You have White kind of plummeting in terms of his rushing efficiency numbers, which is something we saw year over year over year. It's safe to say I think that Rachaad White's niche role gets even more defined in 2025. He's a stay away outside of just full PPR leagues. After White, we've got Austin Eckler, who, looking at it, I think I might jump Eckler over Rachaad White. This is obviously going to be very draft dependent. Washington could draft a running back, but Eckler finished top 5 in most running back receiving categories despite missing a chunk of the season. His 17-game pace was over 1,000 yards. They have a very clear defined role for him. If they don't draft a running back, then I will be happy to grab Eckler in a PPR league as my RB4. Right after Eckler, we have Zach Charbonnet, who I already said took a big workload in that backfield. I don't know if he's ever going to jump Kenneth Walker just straight up. He would need a Walker injury, but he did score 8 rushing touchdowns last year, so maybe they have a goal line role in mind for him. After Charbonnet, we have another backup running back in Tyjae Spears. He really saved his spot in fantasy drafters' minds over the final stretch of last year. He had multiple 2-touchdown games in week 15 and week 16. Prior to that, though, he was a complete donut for 75% of the season. It's just hard to imagine the Titans go into next year with Tyjae Spears as a huge part of what they imagine their game plan to be. After Tyjae Spears, we've got Jerome Ford down in Cleveland. I don't really know what to make up of this backfield. Chubb is pretty much dust at this point. Ford's been good every time they give him the chance, but it doesn't seem like they really ever want him to be the guy in that backfield. They got a lot of questions to figure out on that offense right now, so until we see more, we're going to wait for that. Next running back, we've got Javonte Williams, who signed in Dallas. It's a 1-year, $3 million deal. They let Rico Dowdle walk. They also did sign Miles Sanders. I mean, Javonte Williams looked absolutely cooked, put in the microwave for way too fucking long last year. He's one of the worst rushers on the ground. And you also hear Dallas being linked to pretty much every rookie in the upcoming NFL draft. So I don't know how long this, fun little Javonte Williams to Dallas hype train is going to last. I'm clearly not on it. And then last here, we have Jalen Wright. I think he presents some intriguing upside because Raheem Mostert's gone. But like I said, with Devon Achane, I think they badly need to improve their interior offensive line. For a guy like Jalen Wright, who I think has pretty bad vision, he needs really good blocking to open up holes in order for him to be the guy that can succeed and have some fantasy upside. If they don't draft a running back, he can be in line for 120 plus touches in 2025, and he's always viable to break a really, really big one. So don't want to completely write him off. But of that rookie class last year, not a lot of intriguing players left. This rookie class incoming, though, there will be a good 5 to 8 players that I think will find themselves in the rankings of the top 36 backs once the draft comes. We'll have omarion Hampton, who will probably work his way into that top 15 borderline range. I've seen him mocked anywhere from Chicago at 10. If that's the case, he's going to be a top 12, if not top 10 back off the rip, most likely. I've seen him drop into the second round, but more often than not, we're seeing omarion Hampton, the UNC running back, mocked in the first round of the NFL draft, which is kind of auto high ranking in fantasy football. You'll have Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, the 2 Ohio State running backs, who will probably get early round 2 draft capital if one of them goes to Chicago, if one of them goes to KC, if one of them goes to Dallas. Those are really, really good landing spots, or Denver's a really good landing spot. Caleb Johnson out of Iowa could also get early day 2 capital and land in a really good spot, which would set them up for top 18, top 20 draft capital positions right away. Got some other interesting backs. Obviously, I won't go through all of them. I really like Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee, Cam Scatabo out of Arizona State. This is just a really, really deep running back class that I think are going to have a lot of draft capital and a lot of impact players off of the rip. So as soon as the NFL draft happens, obviously we'll make an updated version of this list. We'll also do this list for the wide receivers in a few days, maybe next week. But regardless, if you want to see that, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you're new here, go check out the Dynasty channel. If you're new there and want to get into a Dynasty league, or you're already in them and just want to learn a little bit more about the rookie class, because we're doing it over there. All right, that's all I got for you today. Smoochies.